Sup peeps, my name's Ian. I sell books online. Online at the moment. At the moment, we're working on that. Last video we spoke about sourcing and different ways of doing that. Today I'm starting something, well, a little bit different. So I've just recorded an entire video and I'd forgotten to plug in my microphone. It's all set up and it's sat there, you know, there it is, right there. But I hadn't plugged it into the bloody camera, so apologies. You'll have slightly different audio on this one. I'm just hoping that it actually works out. That would be nice, wouldn't it? All right, see you in a minute. Kind of the same. Cheers, Seth. I took down all my listings on eBay a few weeks ago. The way I had been selling on eBay had ceased to work towards the end of last year, and it just declined and declined and declined till I was starting to get days with zero sales whatsoever, despite having thousands and thousands of pounds worth of stock uploaded onto it. The same stuff that had sold fairly consistently up until, like I say, last November. But I am not one for cutting off my nose to spite my face. So there still has to be a place for eBay somewhere in book reselling. There's still people doing it and doing it quite successfully. Where my typical model is pick up cheap books and sell books cheaply. But eBay's just not working like that anymore. It's become a much more professional business model. I think that's possibly a way to describe it. More like Amazon. If you're selling on Vinted, where I'm doing a lot of my business at the moment, then it's like a car boot sale, you know. Chuck it on there and people will buy it for pennies and you'll make pennies. Books I'm talking about here, there might be other categories that do an awful lot better in Vinted, but with books, that's it. So if you can sell 100 books, you'll sell them for £1 each. That's pretty typical. eBay, like I say, has become a bit more of a professional model, and that those changes, they started, probably a good few years ago. It's began to move in that direction, but now it's really consolidated there. They have brought in an awful lot of new features for personal sellers, so that if you do have, I want to sell my mouse, you can, and you can do it for pretty much free, similar to with Vinted and a few other platforms. But on the business side, it's become a bit trickier to get eyes on your items and get things sold. So it's a huge platform, millions and millions of people visiting it every day. But within that, there's millions and millions and millions and millions of items there for them to potentially buy. So you need to get to the top of that. It needs to be the right stuff and it needs to be seen. So I'm setting myself a little challenge. Started a couple of days ago. So I've been kind of humming and hawing about how to approach this. And the best way to work things out is to try things. So I'm back on eBay, but this is the strong one. There are a few criteria which I am going to stick to while selling on eBay to see how it works, share that journey with you, and see what's actually achievable and possible with a much more limited approach than what I had previously. So there's a few lessons that I've learned on eBay since the downfall in November, and that is chucking stuff en masse doesn't work anymore. Whatever's going on with the algorithm or whatever it is, if you've got 10,000 items and people are only looking at 9,500 of them, then it thinks all your items are rubbish and seems to stop driving the good quality traffic towards it. So that's one thing I've learned. It takes up a lot of space to store those 10,000 items whilst you're waiting for them to sell, which is expensive in itself. So we need to limit that. So there's the first two things. Much, much, much fewer stock volume to limit both the space required and only to have stuff on there that hopefully eyes are visiting every single day so that my stuff still looks good to the eBay algorithm or however it is that it works these things out. I know people understand that an awful lot better than I do. I've not really bothered researching it that much, to be honest. If it looks good, I want to sell it. There's it. The approach on this is going to be, again, a bit different to what I was doing most recently on eBay. It's actually similar to what I did right back at the start, and then moved away from it because it wasn't working for me at that point, but I think it'll work now. So, the first rule is I have a calculator that I use that works out how much profit per item can be made. Now, that takes into account my shipping costs, listing fees, final sale fees, the 30 pence plus whatever the standard percentage is, promoted listing fees, and VAT. Now, because I sell books, VAT is really important. You don't, for the majority, there are a few exceptions, but for the majority of books, you don't charge your customer VAT. So I don't have to pay VAT to the VAT man for the vast majority of my sales. However, I get charged VAT by eBay, by Royal Mail, by Evri, by Yodel, anywhere where I'm buying stuff that's not a book, I'm getting charged VAT, my packaging supplies. So I'm registered for VAT, and at the end of each period, I can then say, right, how much have I been charged for VAT, and how much have I charged for VAT, and whatever the difference is there, I'm due to pay, which again, because I sell books, is usually in my favour. So my profit calculator takes all of these things into account and tells me what's the minimum I need to be selling a book for to make enough profit to make it worth my while. So on eBay, I've decided that that is just under £2. £2 is the real number, but just for keeping things rounded, it actually works out just under £2. So to make £2 per item, the minimum I need to sell it for is £5.99. Now I buy them for like 25 pence each. So to make £2 of a 25 pence purchase and selling it for £6, it shows you just how much money is going elsewhere within the eBay transaction. If I sell something for a fiver in Vinted, it costs me 25 pence to buy it and 10 to 15 pence for my packaging. So I'm making, not far off a fiver. If I do that on eBay, it's a very, very different cost process. Plus, the cash flow element is different because I will pay out an awful lot more upfront, and I'll have to wait, up to 3 months to actually recoup some of that back into cash flow through the VAT process, which is not something you should rely on earning money from VAT, but I've got a feeling your big sellers, that's where they make their money. Everything they can sell at cost, and then they make their profit on the VAT at the other end, but that's more a medium-term gain. Anyway, getting back to it, this profit calculator allows me to work things out at £5.99. Now, there's one other key criteria that's taken into account there, and that is, I'm always watching YouTube. I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube just to see if there's anything that I can implement in what I do. Not always looking for the next, get rich quick scheme or anything like that, but just looking at what other people talk about to see what can be implemented. And I was watching it's Alex Hormozi the other day. I think it's one of his older videos actually. I do dip into his stuff every now and again. And one of the things he was talking about was opening up the gyms. So when he opens up the gyms, there's somebody who's saying, right, $99 or whatever for, a 3-month trial, and it's costing them $50 or whatever to get that customer in. So over 3 months, they're making $50 profit. And then you've got all your the cost of the equipment, staffing, all of these things to come into that as well. In his model, he was saying, right, it's $600 for a month. Do you want it or not? And enough people said yes, that it made it worthwhile, which then meant that to make essentially the same $50 that the other gym are making, he's got $550 to spend getting that customer, compared to next to nothing on the other side. So let's take that approach with eBay and their promoted listing fees and really bump up what we're willing to pay for the promoted listings so that we will always be at the top, hopefully. And therefore, even though the price is maybe slightly higher than other sellers, not massively so, again, I'm not putting up a £3 book for $5.99. It might be a book that typically sells for £5.50 that I'm putting up for $5.99, or for the most part, it will be at least $5.99 anyway. But that extra percentage paid for the advertising will put us hopefully at the top of enough listings that will get enough eyes on the stuff to get it moving fairly quickly. Excuse me. And if it moves quickly, I can buy more, I can sell more, and I can keep that all ticking on. So there's our rules. 1, limited space. I have a 6-foot shelf. It's about a foot deep. It's actually at the back of my table at the moment. 6 foot long, a foot deep, and it can go a couple of feet high if need be. So if I'm stacking up stuff that can't be stacked, that's great. So that's my entire stock space, which is not massive. You know, that's a drop in the ocean for everything that I've got elsewhere. Second rule is minimum sale price is £5.99. So when I do my pickups, I'll be having a go through that and looking for anything which has a sales value of higher than £5.99 or £5.99 or higher. I see maybe £5.50, and I can try and stretch it with some, but really that £6 mark is what I'm looking for. Anything that'll sell for that or above, and then it makes it worth my while to get that listed and try and sell it. Make sense? The other criteria, which I didn't disregard before, but I didn't pay much attention to because I was just looking for, churning stuff out cheap and cheerful, is only trying to list stuff that has some sort of sell-through rate. So I was going through some of the stock that I picked up on Sunday, maybe it was Monday, I don't know. And there's a few things you go on and you scan them on Amazon or eBay or wherever, and somebody's going £120 for it. None have sold, ever. There'll be 20 listings, things from like 70 up to 120, £150. Nobody has ever sold one. So they're out the window. Although they might be £5.99 books. They go in one pile. Everything else, there might be 20 or 30 of them listed. Now, I'm not looking for like 100% sell-through rate or even a 50% sell-through rate, but as long as they are selling, so there's 20 there and 2 or 3 have sold in the last short period, then that means that people are buying them. So therefore, if mine can be at the top with a good competitive price, mine should be the next one to sell. If there's 3 sold in 3 months, I can assume that, it'll sell within a month if I can get that position and get it presented correctly. So that's the criteria for what's going to get listed, the rules about what I'm going to do. How I'm going to source them, just part of my normal routine. I'm not doing anything different there. It's just I'll pick stuff up and I'll be going to go through it, see what looks like a likely eBay candidate, take out all the stuff that's high priced but doesn't actually sell, and that'll leave me with a selection of good bits and pieces. And I've begun this already. I say the stuff that I picked up the other day, as well as I had maybe half a dozen books, collections from previous eBay, which I've just gone in, revamped the listings, and I've put them back up as well to get them started. But I do have about 38 items listed on eBay already, and 3 have sold. We have sold a bundle of Biff, Chip and Kipper books for $22.99. We have sold a Neil Stephenson book for $5.99, and we've sold a bundle of 3 vintage Peter Benchley, Jaws, The Deep, and whatever the other one was. I'll try and find a picture of these things, leave them up there anyway. And that's sold for $14.99. So that's 3 days, 3 sales since getting these things up and running again. I'm not going to go through the costs of that at the moment, but I will be doing one of these every week. So this is an introduction, telling you what this little quest, challenge, ambition is going to be. And then Sundays should be the day that I'm able to provide an update on how it's gone the previous week with these eBay sales in that particular place. So I won't be talking anything else except for what's going through on that. So when we get to Sunday, this Sunday coming, I'll run through all those figures, everything that's sold through the week, stuff that's been listed, give you a really good clear picture of how it's progressing and where it's going. Kind of starting from scratch, only I'm using an established account. Is that cheating? I'm not going to go through the hassle, I'll be honest, of getting a new account, building it up so that eBay will actually let me list more than 10 items at a time and not hold the funds for 6 weeks at a time and all that kind of usual nonsense. So yeah, it's my established account. I'm going back to it. We have opened an eBay shop, so the £27 a month, one for that, plus VAT, but I get that back, so it's £27 a month. Yeah, £27 a month for the shop, and that gives you 250 free listings a month, plus 100 auctions, which I never use. And that gives me 250 items that I can list in a month, and it's not going to cost me anything additional for listing fees. So therefore, I know what my listing cost is per month, given that into account. I know what my promoted listing is going to be at any given point, because I know what I'm going to promote stuff at. I know my fixed costs for eBay, i.e. the standard listing percentage plus the per sale value that will come out of all of that, and I know my packaging costs. So with those 250 listings a month, there's potentially £1,000 to £2,000 in profit to be had based on what I want to be getting up and listing on here. £5.99 at £2 a sale. I know that arithmetic doesn't work out, but £5.99 is simply my minimum that I'm looking for. So, as I mentioned, the Neil Stevenson book that sold, it sells for between £5.50 and £7. So I stuck it up at the £5.99, gets the ball rolling, and it's sold very, very quickly. More typical will be like so that, which typically goes for £8 or £9. So it's still got my same selling costs, higher percentage obviously with the selling fees, but it means that the average profit is going to be around about £4.50 per item if I'm selling it for £8, £9, £10. That's really where my target is, but £5.99 is my minimum. I have a stack of those books actually. In fact, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 29 books to list from what I've picked out the other day. So I've got 38 up at the moment. I've got another 29 to get listed, which will be happening today at some point, today being Wednesday. I'm also doing another wee pickup today. I don't know what will be in that pickup, but we'll have to wait and see. And at some point soon I will also share the stuff that I've already got listed. I'm just not very well organised to display that at the moment because I'm in the middle of listing a whole stack of vintage stuff, which is everywhere. Anyway, that's all we've got for now. I say eBay challenge. Let's see how this goes. Using limited space, high promoted listings, because we want to be the top of everything. If we can outspend everybody on advertising, then we have a monopoly as such on the top spot, which I know isn't exactly how it works, but we're looking to try and get a monopoly on the top spot for everything that we are selling, and anything that's related to what we are selling to push our listings up there. So spending big on the advertising, charging high enough for our purchase value that we can actually afford to spend an awful lot on advertising per item, and see if that generates the sales needed to get back to that £1,000 to £2,000 a month profit on eBay. Used to be £2,500 to £3,000 pre last November was my profit on eBay, which was quite nice. Not wages, profit for the business. Last month, but the month when I shut it down, it was about 68. So we've got a long way to go to get back to that, but I'm really curious to see how this works out, and whether or not the way eBay works now as a more professional structure will facilitate that happening. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you all soon. Bye. My mouse doesn't work to turn this off. I've got to push the button.